President Biden taking his first steps, possibly, towards the decriminalization of marijuana on the federal level. He is pardoning all prior federal offenses of, quote, simple marijuana possession. This will clear convictions for several thousand Americans.
Hello and welcome to What the F*** Just Happened Today, your essential guide to the daily shock and awe in national politics. I'm Joe Amditis. Let's get to it. It's Thursday, October 6th, 2022. Welcome to day 625. Joe Biden pardoned anyone convicted of marijuana possession under federal law and urged state governors to do the same. Biden also said that his administration would review whether marijuana should continue to be listed as a Schedule I drug like heroin and LSD, saying that it makes no sense. The pardons will clear about 6,500 people who were convicted on federal charges of simple possession from 1992 to 2021, and it will also include thousands more who were convicted under a Washington, D.C. code. Meanwhile, a federal judge temporarily blocked enforcement of large parts of New York's gun law. In a 53-page order, Judge Glenn Suddaby ruled that multiple provisions in the state's new law are unconstitutional, including the restrictions on the ability to carry guns in sensitive places, such as Times Square, the subway, libraries, public playgrounds, and zoos. State Attorney General Letitia James said her office would appeal the decision, adding that, quote, common-sense gun control regulations help save lives, end quote. Back in D.C., Biden said the United States is eyeing alternatives to oil from OPEC Plus countries as gasoline prices begin to climb again. After a roughly 100-day decline, gas prices in the United States rose nearly 3 cents per gallon to $3.83 a gallon, the biggest one-day hike in nearly 4 months. OPEC Plus announced yesterday that it would reduce its production by 2 million barrels per day in order to raise oil prices. The Biden administration has reportedly discussed easing sanctions on Venezuela to allow Chevron to resume pumping oil there. The National Security Council, however, says there are no plans to change its sanctioned policy towards Venezuela unless President Nicolas Maduro's government restores democracy in the country. Venezuela has been under economic and oil sanctions since 2019, when the U.S. and dozens of its allies declared that opposition leader Juan Guaido was Venezuela's legitimate president. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve says inflation has remained stubbornly persistent and that its benchmark interest rates will probably be at 4.5% to 4.75% by next spring, or, quote, until we are confident that inflation is firmly on the path toward our 2% goal, end quote. The Fed raised its benchmark rate by 0.75 percentage point in September for a third time in a row, bringing it from 3 to 3.25%. The International Monetary Fund warned that the risks of recession are rising globally and that, quote, things are more likely to get worse before it gets better, end quote. Kristalina Georgieva, managing director of the IMF, said, quote, multiple shocks, among them a senseless war, changed the economic picture completely, end quote, and called the current economic environment a period of historic fragility. In related news, initial unemployment claims increased by 29,000 to 219,000 last week, in line with the 2019 pre-pandemic average of 218,000. The Labor Department will release its latest employment report on Friday, and economists estimate that payrolls increased about 275,000 in September. The unemployment rate is expected to hold steady at 3.7%. And finally, COVID-19 boosters could prevent about 90,000 U.S. deaths this winter if more people would get their booster by the end of the year. A new analysis suggests that if booster vaccinations continue at their current pace, the nation could see a peak of more than 1,000 COVID-19 deaths per day this winter. The researchers found, however, that if 80% of eligible people receive their booster, it would prevent about 90,000 deaths and more than 936,000 hospitalizations. There are currently more than 400 daily COVID-19 deaths on average in the United States. Meanwhile, nearly 24 million adults in the United States currently have long COVID, and more than 80% have reported having significant limitations in their day-to-day activities. As many as 4 million people are estimated to be out of work because of long COVID symptoms. And in the polls, Marist says 44% of Americans approve of the job Biden is doing as president. That number has been going up for 3 months in a row. 49% of Americans, meanwhile, disapprove of Biden's job performance, down from 54% last month. That's all for now. You can find the links and sources for all of these stories on the main website. And as always, visit whatthefjusthappenedtoday.com for the latest news and headlines. Until next time, I'm Joe Amditas.
Shut up! Shut up! Stop! Stop him! Stop him! What are you, a Russian sympathizer? What evidence do you have? What? That helps Putin. You're not allowed to say it. Be quiet! It's Russian propaganda! How dare they? Yet brilliant. Right. Really, Seth Moulton. Align with Kremlin messaging. It aligns with Kremlin messaging. Really? Is it really? You're evil. They have no idea. Don't ask. Just shut down the segment. Okay. It aligns with Russian propaganda.